No, the robot. Okay, here we go. Just bear with me a sec. Okay. Anapita charim chirat karunaya vatyana kalal samapayitum unato jvala rasam basva bhakti shriyam hari purata sundara yuti kadamba sandipita sadahidaya kandare spuratu vasachi nanandan Panchakalpatubhischa kripasinduevicha Patitanam Pavenabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namamaha Om again Tinamandasya Gyanjana Salakya Chakshumilitamina Tashmai Shri Guru Maha Trinada Pisunichana Taroda Pisahishnuna Amanina Manadina Kitini Sadari Vachavigam Manashakaravigam Jivavigam Mudarapastavigam Itam Vigam Yovishahetadira Savamapiman Prithvim Sasisyat Tatinukampam Susamik Shamano Bunjana Vetma Kritam Vipikam Hit Vaktapupi Vididam Namaste Jivyo Mukti Sadaya Bak Anyablasta Sunyam Gyan Kamriana Vitam Anukalenya Krishna Shilanam Bhakti Uttama Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, beloved devotees. I offer my humble obeisances to Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, my beloved and extraordinary Gurudev, and I offer my humble obeisances to the Parampara and to all the assembled devotees and those devotees who are going to be listening by recording later too. This is Mercy Grace Leader. It's the second installment of the week. And just to remind everybody, some people are regulars, some people are not, just to remind everybody that we started this program straight after Kartik 2020. We were full, our hearts were full of nectar after a whole month of Harikatha during the Kartik month. And in order to keep that mood sustained, and so that we can approach Vrindavan in 2021 with some momentum, with our hearts full and eager and greedy for entrance into Braj by the mercy of Srila Gurudev and Parampara, we designed a program twice a week where on Mondays we beg for the mercy of the acharyas who appeared and disappeared that week, while on Thursdays we hear various lila. And this week actually is an odd week in the sense that we actually managed to honor all the Vaishnavas, all the acharyas last week. And because it's Rathyatra this week, we've had a double billing of Rathyatra, where on Monday we had some really tremendous Harikatha from Sriman Mukunda Prabhu. And today I'm sure we're going to have equally tremendous and tasty and relishable katha from our beloved Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj, who is coming in live from Gurugram today. So Maharaj, a very, very warm welcome. We always love your katha, and I hand over to you for today's Mercy Grace Leela. Dandavat pranams.
Dandavat Yashoda, Dandavats, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Guruve Gauda Chandraya, Radhikaya Tadale, Krishnaya, Krishna Bhaktaya, Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nityalila Prabhishta Om Astotarasara Shishimat, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved, Nityalila Pravishta Om Astotarasara Shishimat, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams. So I'm very honored, indeed, deeply honored to be here today to discuss the topic of Hera Pancami, which comes right at the end of the Rathyatra. But just before I begin, I wanted to clear up some perhaps misconceptions that may have happened in the previous class that I did about the Swarup of the Jiva. And my friend Yashoda Prabhu, he's going to just ask a couple of questions now, just to clarify anything that may have been misunderstood or taken incorrectly. So Yashoda Prabhu, perhaps you'd like to...
Yes, Maharaj, no problem. Actually, just bear with me 1 second, because I'm going to do something I don't normally do, which is I'm going to mute everybody. Yeah, and then I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, Maharaj. Great. The reason being, we don't want to get sidetracked on the subject. So we're just going to have a little conversation to clarify things, then move into your kata, right? Okay, so the first question, Maharaj, is we are told that the jiva is eternal and is never born and never dies. Is that Sarupa the jiva fixed in its Shtai Bhav Ras, or can it be changed inherently and thus eternally through association?
No, it wouldn't be eternal if it could be changed. It's 100% fixed, exactly the same as the identity of a seed is fixed. 100%, 100%, 100% fixed. Cannot change.
Thank you. Second question, if the Shtai Bhav is fixed in, say, Madhura Ras, then can it be changed from Sakya to Vatsalya, or from Vatsalya to Sringara, or from any of the above to Manjari, or is that fixed at the, or is it fixed at the more specific level?
It's fixed, but it may go through an apparent external change, just like we have the example of Shyamananda Prabhu. He took from Gauridas, from Hriday Chaitanya, who was in Sakya Ras. Hriday Chaitanya was the disciple of Gauridas Pandit, who is like Subal in Krishna Lila. So he was coming in a very prominent Sakya line, and that seemed to be manifesting within him. But when he met Jiva Goswami, then his original Madhurya Ras, the original, ignited, and then that manifested fully. So it may appear to actually change, but it doesn't change. It can't change. The seed, the essential Shtai Bhav, cannot alter.
Great. I
but
think
it
you've actually
depends on
answered...
the association, huh?
Sorry, Karen Marsh, I interrupted.
But it depends on the association, on how it actually blossoms and flourishes.
Yeah, I think actually you've probably answered the third question in that second question, because the third question is, to what extent can association impact our Shtai Bhav?
Totally, totally. Exactly, if we consider it like a seed, if you plant a seed in a rough ground, you're going to get, like, say, a mango tree. It's going to come out perhaps a little crooked and a little stunted and a little bent, etc. Whereas if you plant a seed in a beautiful fertile space with plenty of space to grow, then it's going to manifest to its full potential. So depending on the association, of course, the association is paramount. The association is paramount to bring the seed, just like with Bhakti Devi herself. Bhakti Devi will manifest when someone with bhakti, just like in the first chapter of Madhurya Kadambini, bhakti sanjayate bhaktya. Bhakti will ignite the bhakti in the heart that is already present in the heart. Exactly the same analogy as fire in wood. The fire in wood will never ignite until it touches another piece of wood that's on fire, but the fire is present there in the wood. So these are just basic.
So basically, in summary, the potentiality of the individual Sarup remains eternally fixed in one of the 5 rasas, but the actual external internal realization of that potentiality is watered, if you like, through association.
Yes, dependent on association. Yes, yes, yes. Good.
Okay, beautiful, Marsh.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Yashoda. Yes, last time when I was answering that question, it may have come out a little bit blurred, that I didn't say exactly what I'd understood. So we'll leave it there. So today we'll come back to our topic now, is Hera Panchami. And this happens on the 5th day of the Rathyatra. This is such a special festival. It's a very significant.
Sorry, Maharaj, I pressed the wrong button. You need to unmute yourself again. Apologies.
I said all that, now I've got to say it all again.
Only about 10 seconds, Maharaj.
Oh my God, that was such a good build-up. Now I've got to say it all again. Okay, so this is the Hera Pancami festival, which is a most sacred event and sometimes gets minimized because of the extravaganza of the Rathyatra display, because there's millions and millions of people, huge chariots, etc. Everyone is focusing on this Mahotsav, this festival. But the Hera Panchami, this happens right at the very end of the Rathyatra, 5 days, Panchami, 5 days, on the 5th day. So Hera, essentially, we can say it means to see, or it means diamond, or it means gold, it means opulence, wealth. It's the wealth that Lakshmi Devi displays when she decides that her Lord and Master, Jagannath Dev, has been away for too long, that he's ignoring her, basically. A woman naturally will feel like this if she's not given sufficient affection directly from her husband or lover, whatever, like that. So Lakshmi Devi is definitely in a mood like this. She's not sure. Her husband left, Nilachal left the mandir and went to Gundicha. What is Gundicha? Gundicha is Vrindavan. But he very carefully took Balaram and Subhadra with him to allay her fears so that she wouldn't become disturbed, thinking that he was going to associate with the gopis, etc. So deliberately he took Balaram and Subhadra for this reason. So I want to read quite a little bit today from my Gurudev's Rathyatra book. If any of you have this, we can see from here, because here he unpacks it beautifully in great detail. And I can repeat his words, but I think just to hear his words directly will make a greater impact on our hearts. So this festival, what is so special about it all the way through is it's accentuating the difference between Vrindavan and Dwarka. We as bhaktas, as aspiring devotees, must know this topic deeply. We must know it conclusively. The essential difference between Vrindavan and Dwarka. In Vrindavan, there is full-blown Madhurya Ras. In Dwarka, there is also Madhurya Ras, but it's of a different flavor. It is of Swakya. It is of marital relationships that Krishna has with the gopis, but with the queens rather. But in Vrindavan, the principal dynamic that we should remember is that all the residents give the impression that they are supporting Krishna. And Krishna's mood in Vrindavan is that he is fully dependent on the Brijvasis, fully dependent on the Brijvasis. If you have a pen and paper, this particular thing you should write down, because this is like pivotal. This is like, this you can explain at any time, that Krishna is dependent on the Brijvasis, whereas in Dwarka, the Dwarkavasis are dependent on Krishna. In Dwarka, they all believe that Krishna is either the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Paramatma, super soul like that, or even just a great personality, or the prince of the Yadus, etc. But in either case, they are all depending on his strength and his mighty arms to protect them from the various demons and so on. Whereas in Brindavan, Krishna, when he's a little baby, he can't even roll over without his mother. He can't do anything without his mother. This is a fact, and he's totally dependent on the love of the gopis entirely. He plays his flute at night, calling the song for the gopis to come and save his life, that he will give up his life unless the gopis come quickly into the forest and associate with him. So everything is that Krishna is dependent on the Brijvasis, and the Dwarkavasis are dependent on Krishna. So that's just a very basic preliminary appreciation. So this Hera Pancami is described in chapter 7 of the Origins of Rathyatra book. And the first chapter is describing the difference between Vrindavan and Dwarka, which is what I've just said a little bit of. I want to read the first paragraph here because it sets a nice stage for the rest of what we're going to speak about. It's saying the meaning of Hera Pancami is as follows. On the 5th day of the chariot festival, Lakshmi Devi becomes very worried and thinks, where has my husband gone? He told me, I am going for a change of environment for some days, and I will return very soon. It has been 5 days now, and still he has not come back. Unable to tolerate this, she becomes very angry and gives orders to all her associates as though they had to fight with the enemy. Take up your weapons. Then she becomes the commander-in-chief of her army and goes to attack her husband. This is the wonderful festival that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his associates relished so much on this 5th day of the chariot festival. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he changed the whole way that the Rathyatra festival was being performed. Previously, there was only one chariot, and Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra would just ride on one chariot. Practically speaking, it was pulled by the pandas, and not so many people actually attended the festival. But when Mahaprabhu was present in Puri during his manifest pastimes, he totally changed the dynamic because he explained and demonstrated with his own moods, etc., the ecstatic nature of this Rathyatra festival. This genuinely is the hearts of the gopis, the hearts of Sri Radhika, pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan. We know the origin. I'm sure this was discussed by Mukunda Prabhu. I haven't had a chance to listen to all that Katha yet, but I'm sure he discussed how in Kurukshetra, Radhika and the gopis, they're meeting Krishna after a long time, and Krishna is with all his army, with kings, etc., and they're all honoring him. He has all his weapons, his royal armor, etc. And the gopis, they see him like this, but they want to bring him back on the chariot of their hearts to Vrindavan. This is where they're going to be fulfilled and satisfied. So in this situation, it's described that Radhika, who is there with the gopis, this is not the full-blown, complete Radhika. This is what we're going to discuss today. This Radhika in Kurukshetra is known as Sang Yogini Radha. Radhika has 3 aspects or 3 manifestations. Her principal manifestation when she's with Krishna in Vrindavan is Brishabhanu Nandini. This is when she's with Krishna fully in Samyog, Sambhog. This is when she's fully together with Krishna. And then when Krishna is separate from her in either Mathura or even in Vrindavan, she's called Viyog, but she's always in Vrindavan at this time. But in this occasion, at Kurukshetra, it appears that Radhika has actually gone out of Vrindavan, but Radhika never leaves Vrindavan, just as Krishna himself never leaves Vrindavan. So who is that Radhika that goes to Kurukshetra? This Radhika is known by a specific name as Sang Yogini Radha. This is a manifestation of Radha. It's not Radha directly. So similarly, during the Rathyatra festival, this personality that Mahaprabhu was absorbed in the mood of Radha, is also Samyogini Radha. In the chariot festival, Krishna is on the cart. Brajendra Nandan. Mahaprabhu is only seeing Jagannath as Brajendra Nandan, Shyam Sundar, and himself, his own mood of Radhika is manifesting. But what is that mood of Radhika? What is that manifestation of Radhika that is manifesting? That manifestation is called Samyogini Radha. So that's just a very brief skeleton of what I'm going to describe today. And I'm going to read from Srila Gurudev's Rathyatra book to appreciate this fact that I've already just said. I will unpack basically what I've said in the next hour or so. So what I've said is like the heart of it, but I'll unpack it as we go along so we can appreciate it more deeply. All of these truths are confidential truths. These are not generally spoken on the public market so much. Even here in Navadvip, in the Gaudiya Mats, they don't discuss these topics the way that we are going to discuss today. We have been blessed with such a rustic Bhavuka guru who fearlessly, and it requires fearlessness to actually enter these topics, because many people will object. Why are you speaking so confidentially? Don't you remember what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati cautioned? Don't you remember all the prohibitions about discussing these types of esoteric topics? How can you do like that? Why are you discussing such things like that? But my Gurudev considered that if he didn't discuss these truths, how would they ever manifest in the hearts of the conditioned souls in this Kali Yuga? They wouldn't. They would become covered over from generation to generation to generation if they're not going to be discussed. They would be because it requires some focus, some attention to actually walk into these topics. They don't just drop off the page. You have to consider it deeply, these topics. I've just described this manifestation of Sri Radhika called Samyogini. It's S-A-M, but it has a dot on the top, so we pronounce it Sun Yogini. Or Song with a nga, like this, like Kangsa. So during this festival, Swarup Damodar, Srivas Pandit, all of Mahaprabhu's associates and Mahaprabhu himself, the day before Mahaprabhu, he requests Kashi Mishra, the superintendent and of affairs in Jagannath, to please make a wonderful drama of Lakshmi Dev coming to challenge her husband. Why has he gone to Vrindavan for so long? And why can't I go to Vrindavan? Lakshmi Devi also wants to know this. Why can she not go to Vrindavan? We actually know that Lakshmi Devi is still residing in Bailvan. She's still trying to enter the Ras Leela. What is this speciality? Why cannot she come into Vrindavan? It's what I said at the very beginning, because she's representing the full Aishwarya mood of Dwarka. That Aishwarya mood of Dwarka can never, ever enter Vrindavan. It cannot, it's not present there. When our beloved Uddhav visited Vrindavan, when Krishna requested him to go with messages to Vrindavan, when Uddhav came into Vrindavan, he saw, Krishna allowed him to see Vrindavan as it was when he was there, full of joy and happiness. The cows were all being milked, the gopis were singing, the fires of the Brahmins were bright, the bulls were rutting in the field, etc. There was song everywhere. The birds were singing. It was like a festival of joy. This is life in Braj while Krishna is present. So Uddhav was blessed to see this vision when he first came. But then my Gurudev describes that Krishna stepped out of a doorway. And what did Uddhav do? Uddhav is called a Gyani Bhakta. This means that he sees Krishna in full Aishwarya. He cannot shift from that vision, just like now I was discussing with Yashoda about the Swarup of the Jiva. Uddhav is fixed in Aishwarya Bhav, we can say. He's actually described as being a Gyani Bhakta. This Gyan is knowledge of Krishna's opulence. So what happened when Krishna stepped out of the doorway? What did Uddhav do? Naturally, he paid his obeisances. But in Braj, nobody pays their obeisances. So when he got up, that whole meeting, that whole joyful festival had actually been replaced with the separation devastation of Braj, when Krishna is actually absent from Braj. So Uddhav, he saw this distinct change from when Krishna is there to when Krishna is not there. He saw this. So this mood, how can Lakshmi Devi enter Braj? We'll come back to this point, but let me read further here. So Lakshmi Devi has come out of the Nilachal Mandir, and she's with all her associates. And Kashi Mishra, according to Mahaprabhu's desire, has dressed all of her associates in very opulent paraphernalia. They have real gold, beautiful necklaces. They have beautiful gold earrings. They're full of the regal opulence of Lakshmi Devi. This is what Lakshmi Devi represents. This is the mood of Dwarka. This is the mood of Aishwarya. It's fully opulent. This we have to appreciate, because this is what the whole pastime is going to represent. It's going to be about Lakshmi Devi's opulence compared to the simplicity and rustic beauty of Vrindavan. And which is superior? This is what's going to manifest during this festival. This is why it's such a tremendous festival to appreciate and to dive into deeply. If we are wanting to become more attracted to Krishna in this life, in this birth, if we've understood that this is going to be the way out of my conditioned state of consciousness, then it behooves me to understanding more and more and more of who is Krishna, where is Krishna, how are Krishna's pastimes unfolding, etc. So to hear the Leelas regularly about Krishna, this is the key to extracting ourselves from this conditioned state of consciousness. The purpose of our lives is to become attracted to Krishna, and then automatically our detachment from all that is material will easily come about. Our path is not to try to become detached from the material world separately. Our path is to become attached to Krishna. Then automatically all of our insignificant material attachments will just drift away. They'll just completely dissolve. And the heartfelt connection with the divine, supreme, intoxicatingly beautiful Vrindavan will gradually start to predominate in our consciousness. This is tangibly what will happen if we carefully take our mala, we carefully chant, we carefully follow all the principles that Srila Gurudev has actually given to us, that all our acharyas have given to us. We follow carefully, then 1,000,000% this Vrindavan consciousness will manifest, and it'll submerge any scent of opulence or attraction to that opulent world. So when Lakshmi Devi comes out with all her followers, her army, so to speak, she starts to attack the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu's followers are representing the residents of Braj, of Vrindavan. And Lakshmi Devi, she's coming and she's attacking Mahaprabhu's associates. Gurudev describes they have whips, but they're made of like soft cloth, and they're enacting like very rough behavior of Mahaprabhu's associates. You know, they're demanding, where is my Lord? Why have you taken my Lord? Why are you guarding the gates here at the Gundicha? I want to come and see my Lord now. Lakshmi Devi was hoping to embarrass Jagannath Dev into coming back immediately. But Jagannath Dev is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wasn't touched by that. He just remained within the Gundicha. So Lakshmi Dev, she can't even come into the Gundicha to grab her husband. She can't come inside to physically take Lord Jagannath out. She's checked by Mahaprabhu's associates who are acting as the guards, but they attack them. And Mahaprabhu is laughing so much. And he turns to Swarup Damodar and he says, I have never seen the man of Lakshmi Devi, the anger of Lakshmi Devi, so ferociously enacted like this, coming out, manifesting in this way. And then Swarup Damodar, I'm reading now from the Rathyatra book, he then explained that there are many kinds of man, and that this man of Dwarka is very different from that of the gopis of Vrindavan. So we should understand this dynamic of man. We have to understand some Rathyatra to get the background of the Leela. So there's 4 types of separation mood that the gopis display or exhibit or experience. The first is called Purvarag. This is the first. This Purvarag is brought out in the pastime of Venugit, when they're sitting in their homes and they're appreciating that Krishna is in Govardhan. And there are so many beautiful verses throughout Venugit. Baharpitanata Barabapur Karaniya Karanikaram. They're describing the beautiful brothers, Krishna and Balaram, entering the forest. And Akshan Vatam Phalam Idam Na Paramam Vidama. Again, beautiful verses describing the gopis lament that they are not with Krishna. So this is described as anticipation prior to meeting. These are all emotional states of the heart that we can hear about and appreciate and enter into our own moods of appreciation or attraction to Vrindavan by hearing about the gopis' moods. We are always under the shelter of the gopis. We are following the footsteps of the gopis. We are Rag Anugas. We are following in the footsteps of the Rag Atmika Gun. And we are also following, of course, the explicit teachings of Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami was the most confidential personality to describe graphically all of these pastimes throughout our whole Gaudiya line. So Rupa Goswami is so much significant and important to every single thing that we think about, talk about within our Gaudiya line. He is the direct recipient of Mahaprabhu's teachings about these topics. So these are the topics that we want to encourage ourselves to think about more often. We hear about Tattva and Siddhanta, etc., but my Gurudev has described that the Tattva and Siddhanta are like the horse, and the rider is like that person tasting the ras. So we are like the rider of the horse. So Swarup Damodar is going to describe about the different types of man. And there, my Gurudev described, there are millions of types of man in Vrindavan, not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but there's 4 that are explicitly described. There's Uddata, and this is described as quite short-lived man. Man, understand this man dynamic. This man increases the eagerness of Krishna to meet with Radha. This man is the second type of separation. When Radhika is in man, it means there's some obstacle to their closeness to their embracing each other without any fear, etc. So this second type of man is very beautiful to consider. It makes Krishna work very hard to actually get Radhika's favor. I think all women understand this sense of man. In any relationship between a man and a woman, often this mood comes up, of course, in the conditioned way, but it has its origin in the spiritual world. We should understand that Radhika has so much more love for Krishna than Krishna has for her. This we have to appreciate. So Radhika is always trying to inspire Krishna's deeper attraction and affection to her. And if she senses that Krishna is dragging his heels, so to speak, is not eager enough, then she will just stop talking to him. She will just go into man. And only Radhika can go into deep man for days, or at least for hours and hours and hours, because she knows that Krishna cannot live without her. She knows that so deeply in her heart. Chandravali, her man, I just described, is called Udatta. It's very short-lived because she's not convinced that actually Krishna is going to keep on trying to break her man. Chandravali can't go into man for 4 or 5 days because perhaps Krishna will just forget about her altogether. But Radhika, Krishna can't forget about Radhika. So Krishna has to come and somehow try to pacify. This pacifying the man is the exercise or the demonstration of Krishna's enthusiasm to show his affection and attraction to Radhika. This is the dynamic. This is what it means, man. It's to increase Krishna's greed. This is why this stage of man is there. Also, this stage of man, it facilitates going to the next stage, to pranaya, which is an even higher stage than man. So this mood of man is very significant. There's also 2 other types of man, or 3 other types of man I didn't mention. One is called Lalita man, and this is very, very deep indeed. And this is when Radhika is really sincerely, deeply hurt or unhappy with the situation that Krishna performed in front of her, perhaps. And this man is very, very deep, and this requires all of Krishna's expertise to break it. But Krishna loves this because he loves the challenge of finding out the extremities of his own love. You understand? He has to really work at it, and this is what Krishna loves to do. This increases his own eagerness. Radharani knows that she's pleasing Krishna by demonstrating this man. She knows that this is pleasing to Krishna. She loves Krishna more than anything. She loves him in such a distracted way that sometimes she even embraces a tamal thinking it's Krishna. She becomes like so demented in her attraction and affection for Krishna. But Krishna, he expertly each time has to break this man. And there are so many different pastimes throughout the Bhagavatam, throughout the Govinda Lilamrita. So many pastimes are described there. So I'm just touching on the dynamic of it. And then there's 2 other types of man that are described in Jaivadharma, and that's Sahetu and Nirhetu. There's man with a cause, and there's man without a cause. Sometimes there's no reason for Radharani to go in man, but she just goes into man. There's no reason for it. And this just pops Krishna's mind. What's he supposed to do? That I haven't even done anything wrong, and still you're in man. One day Radharani will have a dream, and she'll dream that, oh, Krishna went to another place and he married so many queens and had so many children. And then she wakes up in the morning, she's really angry with Krishna. Krishna hasn't done anything. Radharani's just had a dream. And because of the dream, she's gone into man. So this is man. But the man, or the mood that Lakshmi Dev presents in front of Mahaprabhu at this time is very ferocious and very angry. Radhika never actually gets angry. Lakshmi Devi gets angry, but Radhika's anger is not like Lakshmi Dev's. Lakshmi Dev's anger is something different. So at this time, when Swarup Damodar explained that there are many kinds of man, that this man in Dwarka is very different from that of the gopis in Vrindavan, then Mahaprabhu told Swarup Damodar, although Lord Jagannath enjoys his pastimes in Dwarka and naturally manifests sublime liberality there, still, once a year, he becomes unlimited eager to go and see Vrindavan. This is a direct quote from the 14th chapter of Madhya Lila. In the 14th chapter of Madhya Lila, all of these descriptions are there. So this is, Mahaprabhu is explaining that Krishna goes to Vrindavan. He says, why did Krishna leave Vrindavan? He asked this question. This is a wonderful question. I'm reading from page 189 in this book now. Why did Krishna leave Vrindavan? Ultimately, he did so to please and pacify the gopis. We should think about this. It is said that he leaves Vrindavan and comes to Mathura and Dwarka because he cannot forget the devotees there or anywhere else. He must support and nourish them. The next question will be, then after leaving, why did he not return at least or visit? One answer is that there is no fort in Vrindavan. If Krishna had returned to Vrindavan and Jarasandha had come, then come to know that he was really the son of Nanda and Yashoda rather than that of Vasudeva and Devaki, Jarasandha would have attacked Vrindavan, and it would have ruined, and it would have been ruined. Nanda Baba was a cowherd, a gopa, not a warrior. So Gurudev is describing here about why Krishna left Vrindavan and why he didn't take his associates with him and why he didn't come back even to visit. And Gurudev describes many times that the gopis' separation was such that it was actually a whisper away from them leaving their bodies. They only maintain their lives because simply Krishna has said his last words to them were that he will return. So they are maintaining their lives with that thought that Krishna will return. And if he returns and we've left our bodies, how Krishna will lament at that time. So they don't leave their bodies. But if Krishna goes to visit briefly, they would not be able to tolerate a second escalation in separation. If Krishna went to visit just for a few days or a week or a month or 3 months and then again left a second time, the gopis would not have been able to tolerate that second leaving. This is why Krishna essentially doesn't return to Vrindavan after he leaves. But this whole festival really essentially is about the difference between the Aishwarya and Madhurya. The Aishwarya represented by Lakshmi Dev coming to attack the Madhurya of Vrindavan. And Gurudev describes, by the constitutional nature of Aishwarya and Madhurya, they cannot exist together. Aishwarya and Madhurya, they cannot exist together. Gurudev continues, you should know what is Aishwarya and what is the constitutional nature of Madhurya Ras. In Dwarka, there is always opulence, and everyone there knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes he is four-handed and can do anything. He can bring a dead person back to life, and he himself has no death and no birth. But in Vrindavan, on the other hand, he is always Madhurya Bhav. Krishna has taken birth from the womb of Mother Yashoda. He is quite helpless. As a baby, he cannot turn over without his mother's help. Sometimes he becomes angry, and he is always hungry. And when hungry, he steals butter from here and there. So Gurudev is describing and unpacking this very, very beautifully indeed. So so this difference is in the back of our minds while we're hearing this pastime. This is what this pastime is all about. The distinction between Aishwarya and Madhurya. So Mahaprabhu, he's sitting watching this drama unfold in front of him with the Lakshmi Devi's consorts, we can say, her associates attacking Mahaprabhu's associates. So Mahaprabhu had asked Swarab Damodar why Krishna did not take Lakshmi Devi with him to Sundarachal. What harm would it have been there? And Swarab Damodar replies to Mahaprabhu's inquiry. This is a quote from the Madhya Leela 14, 122. Swarab Damodar replied, "My dear Lord, please hear the reason for this. Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, does not have the proper qualifications to enter the Vrindavan pleasure pastime." So we know this story, how Lakshmi Devi is performing austerities to enter Vrindavan. And Gurudev describes that in some kalpas, Krishna will come, and in other kalpas, Punamasi will come. So Punamasi comes and she requests, she asks Lakshmi Devi, "Oh, why are you performing austerities?" And she says, "I want to enter the Ras Leela." So then Punamasi says, "Well, can you make cow dung patties? Are you prepared to give up this Brahmani body and accept the body of a gopi? Are you prepared to accept birth from a gopi mother? Are you prepared to accept cheating on your husband? Are you prepared to accept these types of things?" And Lakshmi Devi is fixed in her conception of her worship for Lord Narayan. And she cannot change her nature. She cannot possibly even think of cheating on her husband, etc. This is like unthinkable for her. She cannot make cow dung patties. And Punamasi says, "Can you milk cows?" And Lakshmi Devi replies, "Well, I've never done it." And then Punamasi says, "Yes, you're not qualified to enter." So see the distinction here. Try to see through these descriptions and appreciate the depth of why this opulent nature cannot enter Vrindavan. And therefore, why is Vrindavan so exceptionally sweet? So jumping ahead a little bit, then Srivas Pandit is present when the Lakshmis are attacking the associates of Mahaprabhu. And Srivas Pandit, he starts dancing around in great joy and happiness and starts saying, "Just see the opulence of my Lakshmi Dev." Srivas Pandit is Narad Rishi. One of his swarups is Narad Rishi. So he's in this mood and he's challenging Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar is Lalita Devi, and she's in a mood of a Brijbasi. He's in a mood of a Brijbasi. So Srivas Pandit, he's saying, why does Krishna want to leave this opulent land of Dwarka, where there is so much wealth and jewels and gold, etc.? Why would he want to come to Vrindavan? In Vrindavan, there's just a few trees and flowers and cows, etc. And the Jamuna is there. But then Swarup Damodar, he replies, and he says, "Oh, I want to try and find a place to read from. Just a second." Swarup Damodar begins to describe, Swarup Damodar then retorted, "My dear Srivas, Please hear me with attention. You have forgotten the transcendental opulence of Vrindavan. So this is when it really begins. This is when it really starts to unfold. And then Swarup Damodar begins to describe. He says the natural opulence of Vrindavan is just like an ocean. The opulence of Dwarka and Vaikuntha is not even to be compared to a drop. Imagine this, not even compared to be a drop, because the love is so immense. One flower of Vrindavan can give millions of diamonds and other opulences. One flower of Vrindavan. Though Krishna's associates do not want that, they only make garlands for decoration, and their ankle bells are made of desire stones, chintamani. Although they have no need of them, they only use them when they're dancing. So the gopis, they can manifest anything from the flowers, from their ankle bells, etc., the chintamani. And what to speak of the Kamandenu cows. The Kamandenu cows, they can produce anything you desire. Kamandenu means they're capable of fulfilling all the desires of your heart. This is the opulence of Vrindavan. But what are the desires of the gopis' hearts? They simply want to bring pleasure to Krishna. They simply live in this very natural, simple environment. And this is so much pleasing to Krishna, more pleasing than the Aishwarya of Dwarka. And then Mahaprabhu, he becomes very excited with this by hearing these descriptions from Swarup Damodar. And these descriptions from Swarup Damodar become so significant that eventually Srivas Pandit, he succumbs to the appreciation of the beauty of Vrindavan. And Srivas Pandit now, he comes back into his mood of Madhu Mangal. Another Swarup of Srivas Pandit is Madhu Mangal. So he comes back into his Vrindavan mood of Madhu Mangal and becomes overjoyed. And Mahaprabhu, he's relishing all of these tastes so much. These are all really, really significant points of appreciating the speciality of Vrindavan. Because without really appreciating the speciality of Vrindavan, how can we become attracted to Vrindavan? Understand, in this world where we live, there is the material glitter with so many apparent attractions that we may desire. But if we can very easily just drop that attraction and seek the simple truths and sweetnesses in life and become attracted principally to our devotional relationships, our relationship with Guru, and developing our eternal relationship, ultimately with Srimati Radhika, if that can become the sole focus of our lives, then such joy and pleasure will enter our hearts. That joy and pleasure is already there, in a sense. It just needs to be woken up by this attraction to Vrindavan. So this Hera Pancami festival very much brings out the speciality and sweetness and beauty of Vrindavan Dham over the opulence of Dwarka. And there's another point here that my Gurudev goes into detail describing, which I want to read a little bit here. So he's describing how Radhika never leaves Vrindavan. This is what I said in the beginning. She has these three manifestations. Rishabhanu Nandini, that's when Radha is with Krishna always. Then Viyogini, when there's separation. But then there's another manifestation that goes outside of Vrindavan altogether, that is seen and looks like Radhika. But this is Sanyogini Radhika. This is a manifestation of Radhika. And this manifestation is the mood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in during the Rathyatra festival. So Gurudev is describing, it is because of Radhika that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So Gurudev is describing how Radhika never leaves Vrindavan, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Vrindavanam parityaja padam ekam nagachati. Never he puts a foot outside of Vrindavan. We have to take time to hear these topics regularly, to enter into this real world of Vrindavan Dham with its sweetness and beauty and gentleness. It is because of Radhika that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He stays there only for her, and both of them do not go anywhere else. Then who went to Kurukshetra? Radhika will never go there. It was Sangyogini Radhika, who is Vrishabhanu Nandini, Radhika's manifestation. So I wanted to read these words directly from Gurudev, so you can hear directly. This Sangyogini Radha is a manifestation from Radhika. So I've already described something of the Kurukshetra exchanges between Radhika and Krishna, and perhaps that was also described by Mukunda Prabhu in describing the Rathyatra. But now I want to say something about Godavari, because Godavari is also a manifestation of Samyogini Radhika. When Mahaprabhu goes to Godavari, he meets Rai Ramananda. Who is Rai Ramananda? Rai Ramananda is Vishaka. Vishaka was born at exactly the same moment as Radhika. Mahaprabhu is carrying the mood and complexion of Radhika within his heart. At that time, at the Godavari, that mood has not fully manifested yet. When Mahaprabhu was in Navadvip Dham, he was internally tasting all the specialities of Radhika's highest conceptions of Adiruda, Ruda Mahabhav in Navadvip. Everything is complete in Navadvip. But in order to begin to manifest his Puri Leela and actually come out in Puri and overtly, we can say, manifest these inner sattvika bhavs that he is going to manifest in the Gambhira and in the ocean there in Puri, then it needs to be ignited by a catalyst, and that is Vishaka, that is Rai Ramananda. So Rai Ramananda is waking up that Radhika within the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is being pulled to the Vrindavan of his heart, just in the same way the gopis are pulling Krishna to their Vrindavan here. So this is the nature of the Godavari pastime. This is because this is also described as Sangyogini. This is the manifestation specifically, as well as that personality who is manifesting in front of Lord Jagannath when the cart's being pulled, that Mahaprabhu is in a mood of this Sangyogini. So I've covered quite a few points in different areas, and I've jumped around a little bit, but I've tried to stay principally on this topic of the distinction between Vrindavan and Dwarka and the moods, and how Radhika, she can't actually go to Kurukshetra. She could not certainly go to Dwarka. How could she possibly go to, how could the queens, as I described before, possibly come to Vrindavan? How can Lakshmi Dev enter Vrindavan? They just don't have the adhikar. So this is how we can appreciate the distinction of adhikars in the individuals. If we don't have this seed, so to speak, this Staibhav seed of Madhurya, you can't really fully enter into these paths. It's not that Guru can give you that Madhurya. He can support the blossoming of our Madhurya moods. Gurudev has said so many times, if you come to the camp of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's almost certain, it's almost 100% certain, Gurudev would say, that you are in Madhurya Ras. If you're attracted to Mahaprabhu, then it's most likely that your Staibhav will be in Madhurya. That Madhurya could be in Sakya Ras also, that is also Madhurya. I'm talking about the very broad sense of Madhurya. Do you understand what I mean? I mean, there's Madhurya can be called Shringara Ras. This is explicitly what the gopis experience, but Vatsalya Ras within the Madhurya Mandal, so to speak, or Sakya Rasa is there also. But if you're attracted to Mahaprabhu, then it's most likely that you are eligible to receive his most splendid gift, which is what? Manjari Bhav. This is what Mahaprabhu has come to give. Don't doubt it for a second. He's not come to give Sakhi Bhav. He's not in a Sakhi. He himself is in a Sakhi mood. But all of our Guru Vargya, and we only take our indication from our Guru Varga. Who is Rupa Goswami? Rupa Manjari. Who is Sanatana Goswami? Lavanga Manjari. Who is Jiva Goswami? Vilasa Manjari. Who is Srila Krishna's Kaviraj? Kasturi Manjari. Who is Narottam? He's also Vilasa Manjari. Who is Shamananda Prabhu? He's Kana Manjari. Who is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur? Vinod Manjari. All. They're all Manjaris, because this is the gift that Mahaprabhu is giving. Dear Yashoda spoke this beautiful verse, Anapita Chirim Chirat Kurunabhatino Kalo. Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Ras. This is what Mahaprabhu is tasting, this Unnata Ujvala Ras. And he's giving us service to that Unnata Ujvala Ras in the form of Swa Bhakti Shriyam. Swa, his own bhakti. The beauty of his own bhakti is what? It's in the manjaris. So this is what he's giving directly. This is what Mahaprabhu is giving. And he's giving Braja Ras. He's giving Braja Prem. Braja Prem had never been explained previously. That was never there before. Anapita Chirim Chirat. This means not for a long, long time. This has been bestowed, this mercy on us. We're sitting here listening to this thinking, oh yes, this is quite ordinary. Yes, perhaps I've heard it all before and so on. My God, this is just like so extraordinary that we're able to talk freely without any restraint about these topics that was never, ever discussed even 100 years ago, 200 years ago. This was not discussed generally. But because of the mercy of our acharyas, because of principally the mercy of Rupa Goswami, and the mercy, of course, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the mercy of Sri Radhika herself, we are able to have access to these most extraordinary exchanges between Krishna and the gopis, and what were their moods, etc. So where is this leaving us in our practices, so to speak? How do we come down from hearing this? How do we take this into our lives? We meditate. All of these pastimes are for our internal meditation. They don't, this tasting is an internal taste. We don't have to bring it out, so to speak, in any overt way. It's our own internal reflection and tasting and nourishing our natural mood of attraction towards the sweetness of Krishna. And the greatest assistant, we can say, or the greatest help is to read the divine books of Srila Rupa Goswami. When we read the books of Rupa Goswami, we see his writings are just not in this kingdom. They are in another world altogether. There's so much opening out the beauty of the relationship between Radha and Krishna. And this becomes so attractive that we only want to stay in that world. We don't want to be this. I mean, what is the attraction in this world? We've got COVID now, we've got masks, we've got lockdowns, we've got, my God, who would want to hang around in this material world? What attraction do we have? And yet somehow, because I'm in a material body, I'm still attracted to things of the material world. I have to perform my various activities to keep my life and soul together, etc., and navigate through this world. But what attraction should I find here? That attraction of sense enjoyment, sensual pleasure pertaining to the body and so on. Labda sudulavam idam bahu sambhavante manusyam arthadam anityam dira. This beautiful verse that is describing Gurudev would many times say this verse about even the hogs and dogs can have sense gratification, but we are in the human birth. We can hear these topics of Hera Panchami. So in essence, I know I've spoken many things all over the place, perhaps. I hope you're able to keep a thread. The principal thread was the distinction between Vrindavan and Dwarka, and the moods of Sri Radhika, and the mood particularly of Sri Radhika as Samyogini Radha. It's not the same Radha as Rishabhananandini in Vrindavan. And to hear these pastimes and to appreciate the nature of this Hera Panchami festival is very, very special. And for the rest of our lives, we should be unpacking the dynamics of this festival. It's such a significant, deep festival. So many truths are there for us to relish and taste within this pastime, within these pastimes, particularly the distinction and the love, of course, and these moods of man that are being displayed by Lakshmi Devi, in contrast to the moods of man that are displayed by Radhika. This is so wonderful just to consider how Radha can go into man for such a long period of time, knowing that Krishna has to come and break her man. He's forced to, and Krishna relishes that. So I think I'm going to leave it here. I've opened out so many different topics, and my Gurudev's final, I was going to read a lot more from here, but I find it, if we were all sitting together live, then we could live go through all these topics by reading it ourselves together. Right at the very end, I'm just going to read a little bit right at the very end on page 221, if you have this, Origins of Rathyatra. When Srivas Pandit heard these topics from Swarup Damodar, he began to laugh very loudly, hee, ho, ho. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was deeply absorbed in the moods of the festival, and he watched silently as Srivas Pandit continued to laugh and tell Swarup Damodar, "You don't know anything. You don't see the opulence of my Aradhya Devi, worshipful deity Lakshmi Devi. She is decorated with golden ornaments." But then he takes a turn, and then he starts to appreciate the beauty and sweetness and speciality of Vrindavan by the potency of the words of Swarup Damodar. And then he comes into the mood of Madhu Mangal. And then Mahaprabhu becomes very joyful that it appears in a sense that Vrindavan has conquered Dwarka. This is like the ultimate outcome of this festival, that actually the beauty and speciality and sweetness of Vrindavan has conquered even the opulence of Lakshmi Devi. So please read this chapter 7 of this Origins of Rathyatra. If you don't have time to read, please listen to the audio. It's available on my website if you want to look, www.bvtridandi.com. And you'll see in the audio books, the Origins of Rathyatra. And if you go to chapter 7, it's in a Google Drive doc, so it should be very easily accessible to all of you. And if you listen to this today, because this is the day of the Hera Panchami festival, and all the things that I've spoken about today are coming from my Gurudev's descriptions here in this 7th chapter of the Origins of Rathyatra. So thank you very much for listening and attending. I'm very appreciative to have had the opportunity to speak on these topics. I've never spoken on this topic before in my life, actually. I've spoken a little bit about it, touched on it, but I've never had the opportunity to just speak explicitly on it and just go through it. So perhaps next year I can speak it more connectedly, so to speak. All right. We can just field a couple of questions. If
Marge, thank you very much. That was actually very, very relishable. And I have read Origins of Rathyatra, but that kata you just gave makes me want to go back to chapter 7 and read that again. It was very beautiful. And I wanted to make a couple of points that are points, but they kind of have a question mark at the end. The first one is, forgive me for using a mundane example, but if I was say I was a 19-year-old girl in a household and I was courted by, maybe I was in Parisian society, courted by a lord, and it was all very chaste and proper. And he wasn't ready to, we weren't quite ready to declare that we were going to get married to my parents. It would be something while I was doing my duties and my housework and everything, I would keep very much in my heart and try not to give anything away and carry on as normal. And I think I remember Srila Gurudev saying, or someone else saying, that this, oh no, actually this is like how the gopis are on a transcendental level. They're doing the housework, they're at home with their so-called husbands, they're in love with Krishna, and they do everything even more perfectly, but they've got this kind of like secret love in their hearts 24 hours a day, and it's like making them so happy, but no one externally would know why they're so happy. And this is a really important point, I think, because sometimes as devotees, I think we can struggle to connect this very high esoteric knowledge with going about doing, changing the bins and dealing with our in-laws and whatever. But actually, it's perfect for dealing with all of that if we can stir the pot enough, if we can allow our pot to be stirred enough.
I think we have to know the distinction between material and spirit, matter and spirit. And we have to draw a demarcation line. We have to know what is spirit. And when I'm able to meditate fully on that spirit, I can absorb in that. But when I'm actually having to enact out the conditioned life, then I have to attend to that. And it's just like two different worlds. And you can't mix the two. You can't try and you can empty the bin and at the same time be relishing your paramour relationship internally. But you still have to look like you're, in the conditioned world.
Well,
does that make sense?
But can I just slightly adapt the language? You are actually mixing the two, and you're not mixing the two at the same time. Externally, you're not mixing the two, that's right. But internally, you're in one place, externally, you're doing another. And that can actually make you more effective externally than you would otherwise have been if you can keep them beautifully integrated, yet separate, yet one is fueling the other. Yeah.
It's beautiful what you said. I don't have to comment on it. You said it beautifully. You said it perfectly.
The other point I wanted to make was that I thought it was actually quite ironic and apropos that we started on the subject of the Srupa Jiva, because actually, and the fact that we're so fortunate to be born in this era of Mahaprabhu, where Manjari Bhav is available. And as you said, our proclivity is probably Manjari Bhav if we're attracted to Gaunitai. And I just want to make
after a few births.
Sorry?
After a few births.
Well, no, but eternally, our Swarupa is eternal, right? So
yeah. But
yeah, I might not manifest it right away, but eternally in the seed. Yeah. So, but Gurudev was really, really tough, and there's some leelas about this that Gurudev enacted where he was like, I'm teaching you a certain mood, so don't go speculating on other stuff. I remember there was one young man who said to Gurudev, can I go off to the Babaji's, I think, or something, and it would have been a different mood, and Gurudev said, sure, and he said, here's the taxi fare, and never come back. So this mood that he's giving us, and he's been so generous, so merciful in his books and his teaching, his vichar, everything, is something that we're so fortunate to get that association and be allowed to even try and absorb ourselves in it, even though we're not qualified. Well, I'm not qualified. Even without qualification, we are encouraged to do so. It's quite extraordinary.
I think it's very important that we read Srila Gurudev's books together, and we discuss his teachings together, because then Gurudev will manifest for all of us conjointly, and that way we will keep his message alive, because it is incredibly unique. There's hardly anyone else who is discussing. There's probably no one else discussing as much as we've tried to sort of unpack a little bit today. But it is very exclusive, and we should appreciate that. And there are times when we can't speak about these things.
Before
Offering
I
my
hand over
dandavats to Sajjan Maharaj.
I was just going to say, before I hand over to the audience for questions, I'm so happy to see Shripad Bhaktivedanta Sajjan Maharaj, who I've been wondering where he is and wanting to connect with him. How are you? How are you, Maharaj? You're on. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm looking at Govinda Dasi also from.
Okay, am I unmuted
right
now?
Haribol Maharaj, are you on WhatsApp?
I'm on Zoom.
Yeah, you are now. But how do I communicate with you?
Oh, I'm on WhatsApp.
You are? Okay, great. Can you Zoom chat me your number so I can connect with you?
All right.
That'd be beautiful.
Indureka, I'm just looking at you. Yes.
Thanks,
I
Maharaj.
see you now from Holland. Okay, I know you who you are now.
1 second, Maharaj.
And Marika, oh Marika, yes, I just connected.
Maharaj, Maharaj just trying to say something.
Yes, okay. I'm just having a meeting with some devotees here. I didn't recognize who they were, and I just put the two dots together. I was looking at you the whole time, but now I know who you are. Sorry, I'm interrupting a conversation between Yashoda and
just Maharaj is trying to say something, and then we'll move on.
I was just, thank you very much, Maharaj. That was very nice. I have you touched on a little bit, but I was wondering if you could go further into it. Where Mahaprabhu, in the mood of Radhika, experiencing that love and Krishna's sweetness and his beauty and relishing her moods. You touched on it very nicely, Vishubhananandini, Samyogini, and Viyogini. Could you explain now, you touched on a little bit of Mahaprabhu as Samyogini, in the mood of Samyogini Radha when he was in Godavari with Vishaka or Ramananda Roy. Could you explain a little further, and when he's in Viyogini Radha as well?
When he's in Viyogini Radha, that's when he's regularly sitting in the Gambhira with Swarup Damodar and Rai Ramananda. And he's experiencing the three desires at that point, when he's with Rai Ramananda and Swarup Damodar, Lalita Devi. But when he's in Rathyatra, it's definitely a different manifestation of Radhika that he's absorbed in. And this is Samyogini. And when he's in Godavari, we understand also this is the waking up of the potential that he is about to experience in the Gambhira. We know that Mahaprabhu, basically Gurudev describes, never is in a mood of eating with Krishna. For 24 years, he's experiencing this Vipralamba Bhav of Sri Radhika. Most of the time, it's Viyogini, but in exceptional times, it's this Samyogini Radha. Krishna wants to experience everything about Radhika. So this waking up at Godavari is manifested by Vishaka. It's Vishaka because of her special qualities. It's not Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar is Lalita Devi. She has these different types of qualities like Pragalda. There's a different relationship between Radha and Lalita. But there's a very special, sensitive, exceptional relationship with Vishaka because they're born at the same moment. So Vishaka is able to inspire that Radhika within the heart of Mahaprabhu. And that Radhika wants to bring Mahaprabhu into his heart deeper, which is only Vrindavan. Because it's described, Mahaprabhu describes, my mind and heart are Vrindavan. It's described like that. So here is Radhika bringing Mahaprabhu in the mood of Samyogini into his heart of Vrindavan in preparation to go to the Gambhira. This is like the school Gurudev used to describe when Mahaprabhu comes to the Godavari. This is like the waking up, so to speak. Previous to coming to Godavari, Mahaprabhu was traveling in South India just alone. He was doing so much preaching, etc., relishing, etc. But when he comes and in contact with Rai Ramananda, then this whole mood begins to manifest in connection with Vishaka. I mean, Rai Ramananda Samvad, what does Ramananda Rai describe to Mahaprabhu at that time? Just phenomenal topics about the beauty and speciality of Radhika. Principally, is describing that we cannot enter these topics without the mercy of the gopis. This is the principal message of the Rai Ramananda Samvad. And then in that Samvad also, Ramananda Rai is describing those three baths of Radhika, that Karunamayi, that Karunamrita, bath of compassion in the morning, and then Taranamrita, that bath of youthfulness at midday, and then Lavanamrita, that bath of beauty. These are really esoteric topics that Ramananda Rai is being inspired to speak directly to Mahaprabhu. So we are hearing directly what is the nature of Sri Radhika. This is what we're actually, we as conditioned souls, we are reading the Rai Ramananda Samvad. What are we experiencing while we're reading these truths that Ramananda Rai is being inspired to speak from the very heart of Mahaprabhu? This is Mahaprabhu's mercy. He's carrying us into giving us a conception of who is Radhika. And the first Radhika that very clearly we're getting is Sangyogini Radhika, which is a manifestation of Radhika. And then as we come into the Gambhira, and then Mahaprabhu hears these beautiful Bhagavatam verses every day from Gadadhar at Tota Gopinath, and he comes back into the Gambhira, and he's relishing these beautiful verses. What's that? I can't remember the verses. Like many verses, and then he's becoming these sattvika bhavs are rising within Mahaprabhu. They're coming outside of him, right? When he's in the ocean, all his limbs become elongated. This is a manifestation of Aishwarya, actually. This manifestation of these sattvika bhavs. They're coming outside of him. When he's like a tortoise at the Singadvaha gate, they're manifesting externally these incredible sattvika bhavs. So this is the nature of Mahaprabhu's absorption, but it was ignited at the Godavari. The Godavari is the beginning of it. And that first manifestation is Samyogini Radha. I think these topics are for our meditation. They're not for our sort of like, we can't analyze them too much outside of just hearing them basically and honoring them. Maharaj.
So you're saying the origin is Samyogini and Godavari with Ramananda Roy. Can you speak about
that's what ignites, that's what appears to ignite his whole entrance into Puri. Yeah, go ahead.
So Mike, do you want to elaborate on the Vrishabhanu Nandini Radha within Mahaprabhu in Navadvip Leela, especially?
Not now. No. You're just going over the boundaries. You're going far too far away. Let's sit on Hera Panchami. I mean, Navadvip pastime and Vrishabhanu Nandini, that's a whole nother prakosht. That's when Krishna is complete. And when he's there, everything is internalized. It's covert. Whereas when he comes out of Navadvip, it becomes overt. That's the distinction. Within Navadvip, everything is, Gurudev describes that Mahaprabhu is tasting this Madanakya Mahabhav in Navadvip, but internally. Everything is happening internally in Navadvip. It's not coming out externally. But when he leaves into the renounced order and he touches on these separation moods, then it begins to manifest externally, like him being in the ocean, like a tortoise and so on. All these, and like the tears coming out of his eyes, etc. He's exhibiting all these internal symptoms are coming overt when he comes out to show us directly as conditioned souls his extraordinary nature. But we should never be fazed by this and think that this realm is higher than Navadvip. Navadvip is the quintessence. It is the absolute height. This is how Gurudev explains. But it would appear to a less educated person that actually Puridam is higher because of these things. But this is a whole nother topic, Maharaj. I'm not going there now.
Thank you very much.
Yashoda, guide us quickly before Maharaj sends out the questions.
I want to throw it out to the to all participants. Do we have any other questions for Maharaj on this beautiful topic?
I have Govinda from Klithos I'm looking at. Yes.
There's a question that Shamsundari posted on the chat from Narsingha Prabhu from down in Florida.
You want to read it out, Didi?
Which one? I can read it out.
Yeah.
Dandavas Maharaj, can you give some clarity on how a personality can be the combination of multiple personalities? For example, Srivas Pandit being both Narad Muni and Madhu Mangal.
This is a phenomena which we would call achintya, inconceivable. We have to hold it above our heads and just accept it. In the same way, we accept how this material creation manifested from Mahavishnu's glance on Maya. Don't try to understand. Understand almost means that I want to logically, rationally tuck it away somewhere in my rational mind. But these types of truths are not of a rational nature. Narad Muni, Srivas Thakur, Madhu Mangal, Naradiya Gopi, these are all the same swarups in the single body. I cannot begin to, I can only appreciate it, Shamsundari. I can't understand it. How could I? I don't even understand my swarup a little bit. So how can I understand someone else's four swarups in such a way? You know, but I can hear about them. I can think about them. I can appreciate them, particularly in this context, because this is a very nice question that you're bringing up, because these different identities are what are manifesting in Srivas Pandit. He manifests that mood of Narad Muni supporting Lakshmi Dev. And then he comes into the mood of Madhu Mangal, fully supporting Swarup Damodar. So we see this actual transition practically of his changing swarups right in front of Mahaprabhu. I mean, that must have been extraordinary, because their change in expression, etc., would have manifested there. So these are Aishwarya topics, because they're not inside Naravat Leela. They're not inside human-like pastimes. That's why Puridam is like Dwarka. It's Aishwarya. It's not Vrindavan, Navadvip. Everything in Navadvip and Vrindavan is human-like. Even killing Putana, even lifting Govardhan Hill can come under the category of human-like, because no one actually thought Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead while he was lifting Govardhan Hill. They all thought it was due to the prayers of Nanda Baba, or they thought it was because Govardhan was actually flying, or because of the threats of Sri Radhika. So I've lost the picture of Shamsundari. I was talking to her then. But anyway, she went over.
Maharaj.
Oh, there she is again.
Maharaj, that was actually a question. That was actually a question asked by Nrsimhadev down in Florida, Bhagavan Maharaj's son. So
where is he? Okay.
it's just on the chat, so he must be on Facebook or something. But
Okay, so I hope he understood the answer. Madhuri, did you understand the answer?
Yes.
Okay, so then he did.
Well, it's your word, which is you need to appreciate.
Yes. Not try to understand with logic and rational. Rupa Goswami says very clearly, don't try and take rationality into these subject matters. allow ourselves the liberality of just appreciating. When you're appreciating, it's like you can see beyond the sky. You can just taste the flavor much more happily, rather than trying to battle with the mind to understand everything and put it in a box and then etc. Okay, I think we've just about run out of time. Yashoda?
Yeah, I think that was a fantastic session, Maharaj. You did beautifully. Thank you so much.
Oh, Madhakarna Induleka. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol.
I'd like, guys, I'd like to make 2 quick announcements, if I may, before wrapping up, and then Taruni Didi is going to do some bhajan. One announcement is next week is Guru Pranim. Today is Thursday, so in the UK anyhow, Saturday week is Guru Pranim. We're having, originally it was going to be a 64-hour Zoomathon. It's actually going to be a non-stop 72-hour Zoomathon, starting at 8:30 on Thursday, the 22nd, and it goes all the way through to Sunday. At the moment, we're finishing at around 9 a.m. on Sunday. It's such an exciting event. We're extending it because we're getting more speakers than we have room for. It's a totally non-sectarian One Chaitanya family initiative, because we're actually celebrating and worshipping 14 Nityalila Ashtatara Mahabhagavats. So obviously Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, but also 12 other great acharyas who we're all familiar with, like Govinda Maharaj and Srila Bharati Maharaj and Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj and Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj and Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. And we actually have as many speakers for those 12 gurus as we have for Prabhupada and Gurudev combined. So it's very well distributed. And we got speakers from Brazil to China, from Canada to New Zealand. And we have Gaudiya Mat ISKCON, Sri Gurudev's Sangha, and also we even have someone from a Goswami from the Radharaman temple speaking. So it's fabulous. So it's being promoted. Hopefully you've already seen some of the promotions. We're going to keep promoting it. Please join in for this 72-hour program starting next Thursday. The second announcement, I'll give less details on this because we're just organizing it right now, this was actually, it's very important and pertinent to today's Qatar because Gurudev, this was very close to Gurudev's heart to have a festival for Srila Rupa Goswami's Tirabhav festival, his disappearance festival. Because without Rupa Goswami, as Maharaj said, we know nothing about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu other than Shishastakam, because that's all he wrote. It was Rupa Goswami who was able to express the deep, intimate moods of Mahaprabhu, and without that, we'd really be totally lost and disconnected. So that festival will be on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, slightly different format, on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of August, so a month later. And that will be more of like our Navarit Parakram format, where it will be 10 till 1 in the morning, 10 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, 3-hour session in the morning, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. in the evening, UK time. We'll be having speakers from around the world, beautiful top Maharajas and senior householders, and each, as opposed to Guru Pranim, which will be a mixture of 15 minutes and 30-minute speaking, these will all be 45-minute length Harikatha sessions. So that will, after Guru Pranim, we'll start promoting that as well. So those are 2 tremendous announcements. I hope everybody has time to relish, and I hope everybody gets a lot out of them both very much. We'll now move on to Taruni Didi, who's going to perform some bhajan.
I just want to say thank you very much, Yashoda. You're just doing such an extraordinary service for all the devotees. For so many months, practically, you've been doing these Bhakti Zoom meetings, and what you're just drumming up and presenting for the devotees' relish is just monumental. And I know that you're just doing it with a team, small team, etc. But anyway, I hope everyone else is feeling the same amount of gratitude that I'm feeling for receiving all these.
I don't have the time or the memory to list everybody involved, but actually sometimes by Parampara's mercy, I kind of don't feel like I'm doing very much. I'm in a boat of co-Sevaks, and it's just a beautiful experience because there's different kind of concentric circles of intensity of activity. there's a core team, a
You
alpha
showed
team,
me
an
you're a
alpha
huge
team.
man with a huge heart, and you're doing a huge savor, and we're all
I know,
grateful.
but what I'm trying to say is it's a team thing, Maharaj, and it's beautiful. Like, it's really like trying to, how do the Manjaris say? Kinkari, Kinkari. That's what we want to do. That's the mood. And to do so in a spirit, most importantly, to try to get Vaishnavas across all the Sanghas to cooperate really nicely and concentrate on the things that we have in common and overlook the differences. Taruni Didi, over to you, my dear. Thank you for performing Bhajan today.
Welcome, my Dandavat pranams, Maharaj, and Sajan Maharaj as well, and all the devotees, Hare Krishna. I just also wanted to second what Tridani Maharaj was saying. I'm super excited about the Guru Purnima program and all of the Hari Katha that's going on. I think it's wonderful. I wasn't sure what to sing today. I thought Jagannath Ashtakam might be most appropriate. I don't know it so well, so I can sing it, but I would need the devotees to forgive me any mistakes, if that would be okay. Okay. So that's on page 300 of the songbook, for those who are wanting to look it up, the songbook. Okay. Karachit kalindita tavipina sangita kavara madhupiri nari madana kala spadamadupa Rama Shambhu Brahma Rapati Ganesha Chitapada Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Puje Savivenam Shirasi Shiki Picham Katitate Dukulam Nitrante Sahachara Kataksham Vidhate Sada Srimad Vrindavanavasiti Lila Parichaya Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Mahambodhistire Kanakaruchire Nilashikare Vasam Prasadanta Sahajapala Pajena Valina Subhadra Madhyasta Sakala Sura Seva Sarado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Kripa Paravara Sajala Jalada Srinirachira Ramavani Rama Spuradamala Pankeruha Mukha Suradre Maradya Shruti Ganashika Gita Charita Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Radharudha Gaschan Pati Milita Bodheva Patale Stuti Pradubhavam Pratipadam Pukanya Sadayam Daya Sindhu Bandhu Sakala Jagatam Sindhu Sataya Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Param Brahma Pita Kuvala Dalot Pulanayano Nivasi Niladro Nihita Charana Nanda Shirasi Rasanandira Dasara Savapo Lingana Sukha Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Navibhaiksa Chera Jamna Changana Kama Nikya Vibhavam Naya Cheham Ram Yam Sakala Janakam Yam Veravadhum Sadakale Kale Brahmatapati Nagita Charita Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Hare Tvam Samsaram Jutatarama Saram Surapate Hare Tvam Papanam Vitati Maparam Yadavapate Ahadine Nate Nihita Charano Nishtitamitam Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gauda Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Gurudev Gurudev Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Jai Shri Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. Thank you, Didi. Okay. Feel free to chat, converse, and that was a beautiful session.